welcome to TAP. I'm so happy that you are with me, either on podcast or YouTube. You're so welcome. Therapeutic Astrology Podcast is all about examining life from different angles in order, of course, to live our best life. And I'm very honored to be with Krishnanand today, a very special person. You even told me that when I was emailing you, that because I found you from your work with addiction, where you have expertise in that. And then it turned out that there's a lot more to you and your story. So I continued reading another book from you, the latest book from you, which is called Within the Portal. And you say a few things about yourself, and I thought to start with a quote where you say, "What I am is a human soul trapped in the material phenomena who knows he doesn't want to be. What I am is a soul in a man's body who sees more and knows more than most, and it's lonely." And then you go on to say that you also have this expertise in religion, theology, mysticism, spirituality, and physics, biology, DNA, cosmology. And you presented yourself as a polymath to me, right? And so, yeah, welcome, Krishnanand, first of all.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I began recently using the polymath because as I talk to podcast hosts and other people, I'm like, I get this like 3-page long bullet point list of my curriculum vitae, and I'm like, this is overwhelming, and it looks like I'm bragging. I'm like, so I think I just have to accept that I've always been fascinated by many fields of life and sciences and knowledge, and since I could read when I was 4, I've been studying anything that I was interested in. I dove headlong deep into. So I have kind of acquired a lot of knowledge along the way because I'm fascinated by knowledge. I'm fascinated by truth. And to me, it's all a symmetry. I don't see the difference between DNA and biology and cosmology and astrophysics and again, went to the Hadron Collider in Switzerland and that and spirituality. To me, that's all blended together.
Right.
I'm a knowledge junkie. That's what I think. I'm a knowledge junkie.
I love that. And there's many things that I feel inside of me where your story and what I've read about you so far is kind of amplifying that. Do you know what I mean? I'm like feeling that, and then for you it's like, this is it. And for example, that thing about being a human soul trapped in the material. But let's first just get to a little bit of your story by asking about that name of yours, Krishnanand.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't ask that, so thank you for asking that, because it actually, here's kind of the cool thing I think about my experiences, is that everything about me has a story to it, usually including the shirt that I'm wearing because of the death shirt, which we'll talk about. And so I say now that my soul's name is Krishnanand. My human name is Scott Spackey. That's how I was born. And so in 2010, on my 3rd trip to India out of the 8 that I've been there in northern India, traveling as a pilgrim and staying at ashrams and traveling to holy sacred sites that are thousands of years old. And my guru, my spiritual master and teacher, I asked him for a different name, a more spiritual, my soul's name. And he bestowed upon me the name Krishnanand, which is extremely unique, and I'm not worthy of it whatsoever. Basically, the Lord Krishna is the personification of divine love. He's kind of playful and he's a trickster. And so he's not an almighty kind of version of God. He's the more loving, intimate aspect of God. And Anand, of course, is Sanskrit for bliss. And so to be given this name by this Rasic saint guru was mind warping for me. And I don't even bother trying to live up to it. And so as we talk about my death experience and about what's in that book, is that I was given that name in 2010. I was killed in 2013. So I had that.
You said killed.
Yeah.
Yes, I just want to make that clear.
I said killed. I said killed. Dead, death, killed. And so when I was given the name Krishnanand in 2010, I used that name within my spiritual community. somebody that I knew in my social community, that's how they addressed me, and that's what I went by. But in the world, with my career as a private practice counselor and to the worldly people, rather than confuse them with this new name, I just went by my normal birth name is Scott. So I had kind of two names I went by. After my death event, which we're going to get into, around the fourth year, about the third year of my death event, I was so overwhelmed and nothing was working. I mean, I was miracles and tragedies and triumphs, and I had this vision, you could say, my communication with what I refer to as Akashic agents, we'll get into, and they were like saying to me, like, why are you trying to be Scott? I was trying to keep and preserve my life that was wrecked overnight because of this accident. And I'm trying to restore my life and sustain what I had built throughout my life that was healthy and good and very positive and beneficial for many people. And nothing was working. And the message from the spiritual dimension, you could say, was that this kid, you're trying to be Scott, and Scott's dead. He died in 2013. He died 3 years ago. He's killed, so stop trying to be him. And so I was advised, you could say, to take my name Krishnanand full time. And so that's how I began introducing myself, and that's what I go by now. So I am still legally Scott Spackey in documents, and you can Google Scott Spackey, and you'll see some very good reputable things there for my private practice and all my work, and as an addiction specialist. But Krishnanand is the name that I go by. That's the vibration that I want to resonate under.
How many lives do you feel you have lived in this life? I mean, in this incarnation?
Oh, in this incarnation.
Yeah.
Another wonderful question. Wow, that's a very creative. Cool. I had my first near-death experience when I was born. I was born a nuchal baby with my umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. So they revived me then. I did not know much about this. Now I see, now that I've become an expert in near-death experience and studied it for several years now, and I become an expert in it, now I know that all the symptoms since birth were present with me. I already had some, you could say, some clairvoyant aspects and all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of the side effect of the near-death experience for many people. And then in my first memoir, A Stone's Throw, which has won 5 awards, which is a very intense book, I wouldn't say near-death experience, but I certainly was involved with some very dangerous and wreckful things, to the point where I did enough stuff, drugs and other things, where I absolutely should have been killed many times. And so that book has a very harrowing ending. And so in that sense, I was kind of resurrected through that. And then, of course, this event in 2013, where I was absolutely killed, dead, heart stopped, dead in the street, etc. And so I would say that between reinvention and resurrection, I've had several lifetimes in this very lifetime.
That's what I feel. That's what I sense. Oh man, I have so many questions for you, Krishnanand. So I have written something, but I just feel inspired to ask you about the difference or the connection maybe between those psychic abilities and becoming an addict.
Yeah, I was deeply involved with and fascinated by mystical methods and spirituality and the occult since youth. And I was always going down the rabbit hole looking for the deeper truth, authentic, genuine truths. I didn't trust organized religions. I suspected that they were partly fiction, and I was able to discover that and establish that and prove that. And so, but instead of it turning me off of spirituality, it deepened it even more. And so my curiosity and my absolute overwhelming desire to experience more profundity with life led me to experiment with drugs. And in the beginning, it was all about psychedelics and mind expansion, all that. But eventually, I became more, you could say, adventurous and just plain effing stupid, and did just what I could call narcotics that are just simply pleasure-based. So I was involved with some very intense, dangerous IV drug use for many years. I hung out with some very notorious criminals, and we were kind of an organized group in the Southern California area in Los Angeles. And it was very sinister and very wicked and very bizarre and also very adventurous and very fun. That book has won 5 awards because it is exciting. And so I had my little wake up rock bottom moment after my son was born, and I got clean, and I did it on my own. And it was harrowing and it was difficult. And I learned a lot about addiction. And eventually when I left construction behind, because I had a construction company for a while, for many years, and I woke up after a while thinking, I hate this. I'm not doing anything fulfilling with my life. And I was doing something very good. I was successful. And I thought, I want to do something meaningful. And so I began as a hypnotherapist, helping people lose weight and quit smoking. And pretty soon I got so good and so popular and reputable what I was doing, people were coming to me for all their problems. So I was the crisis solver. And addiction was something I knew very well. So I became a certified addiction counselor. I went to school for that. I got certified. And then when I opened the doors as an addiction treatment counselor, I went from having a few clients a week to 10 hours a day, back to back, nonstop, saving people's lives around the world.
Wow.
Wrote a book on it, toured, went keynote speaking and all that stuff, because my addiction process is very innovative. You can't find it anywhere else. And again, what people respond to about it is that it's not, I'm not very much admired within the recovery empire, because I fly against that grain. I fly in their face. I'm trying to empower people to take charge for themselves rather than become addicted to facility treatments. That is a big profit machine. So yeah, my involvement with that is very intense, and I'm very honored to do it.
Can you say just in short, just because we all are wondering now, what is that special technique you have, the method?
The special what?
Yeah, just the way that you say it's not a normal, it's a special concept that you have recovery from addiction and becoming clean.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not, basically, my book, Project Addiction, the complete guide to using, abusing, and recovering from drugs and behaviors. It covers the entire spectrum. It's a huge book, and now it's a video course, and it's guaranteed. It's a few $100s, and it's guaranteed to work. And why is it guaranteed? Because I know it works. Because if people do it, it will get you well.
Wow.
And so I break down what I observed through myself and through the clients that I work with over the years. God love them. And over the years, eventually I realized that I had kind of innovated a whole system of methods that worked. And again, it's really not about do this or that. It's grabbing pieces of different recovery systems and piecing them together for your own process. For some people, 12 steps might work a little bit. Some people won't work at all. And so we take whatever we can. So what I do is present every modality that's within the addiction empire, and then on my own perspectives that are innovative, that are created by me. And a lot of it comes down to, I'll tell you, the cornerstone of it is, first of all, I break down the phases and cycles of addiction, what happens with the recovery process in a way that's never been done before. And then, of course, the big difference is I learned early on that most addicts, the problem is in this world is that we are conditioned to seek pleasure rather than fulfillment. And this is a game changer. When I turn on this light and start to speak to people about finding fulfillment, then the pursuit of something that's fulfilling replaces the need for drugs and the false impression that they're getting something from that. And so it's not about having the strong will and strong arm it anymore. It becomes, it's what I call a bigger desire. I want this more than I want that, and I'm willing to sacrifice for it. And so it's about recovering and revealing the bigger desire for people, which for some people is spirituality, for some people it's romantic love, could be many things. But my job as a counselor is to find that one thing they want more and expand on that.
More than happiness.
More than they want drugs. And again, the pleasure from drugs, I'll tell you, as a poly addict, I've done them all, and it's pretty phenomenal. And for many people, it's just a pleasure. But for people like me, again, I was getting involved with drugs because I like the philosophical. I was trying to expand my mind and my spirit. I was always deep into the deeper things. And so I falsely fall into the delusion of that these things have answers that are very profound. And they seem that way until you get wrapped in them. Then they lose all their profundity and they're left with nothing but the toxicity. And so, again, I would have made breakthroughs with people that nobody else could help because I was helping them see that many people don't have a clinical problem. They're having a philosophical and a spiritual problem. And they're looking for something deeper and bigger. And when you show that to them and give them access to it, then suddenly it's like, you know what? F drugs. I don't need this shit. It's just trivial. This is minor. I got bigger things I want to pursue.
This is so good. This is so good because in the back of my mind, and I know you have also studied or maybe still study astrology, but many other things amongst it. But for me as an astrologer, I can't help to think about that moon conjunct to Neptune you have in your chart. And that is really, it's all about what you've just said. I mean, it's both the addiction potential, it doesn't have to happen, but you've taken it all the way, right? So it's that potential, but then it's also the recovering of it. And it's definitely in the symbols of Neptune. There is both the addiction and the spirituality. So that's why I'm always like really curious about how it's connected for real life people who go through that, right? And my own addictions and that whole, what we started with saying about that being a soul, yet you're here in the material, and how does it all add up? And boy, is there confusion in that, trying to integrate.
Yeah. And my book and my video course for addiction, Project Addiction, first of all, again, look at the subtitle. The complete guide. So people wonder what it's about. It's in the subtitle. The complete guide to using, abusing, and recovering. So if you want to learn how to abuse drugs, it's in there in detail with pictures. Okay? So be careful. There's a big caution in the front of the book that says if you're going to be cued, you should be starting to feel cued reading this or triggered, put it down, because I'm going to teach you what these feel like, and it cues a lot of people. And so I'm not preaching at anybody. I'm giving them all the tools so that they can solve this, all the tools, so they can choose and how they work, when they don't work, and why. I have a 99% success rate in my addiction recovery. Okay. The recovery empire has lower than 90. Okay. That's embarrassing. They make billions of dollars exploiting people's fear and terror, and they save almost nobody because they just want you to keep coming back. Certainly, as a spiritualist and mystic, I know that the biggest cure, you could say, or solution is a spiritual one that transcends all this. But many people aren't ready for that. And so there is 2 chapters within the book and course that basically all you really need is these 2. Most people need the whole thing because they can't get through that. But the core of it, the heart of it, is in these 2. One is called Pleasure versus Fulfillment. Teaches you why you're seeking pleasure instead of fulfillment. And when you seek fulfillment, it will enrich you and fulfill you. And the other one is Spirituality and Recovery. It's a very brief chapter. I'm a spiritual mystic. It's my life. It has been before I wrote this book. And it's a very brief chapter. What I do in that brief chapter is I give you everything you need to use spirituality as a recovery tool.
Yeah.
It goes deep and it goes wide and it goes very quick. And yet again, I'm not preaching to anybody. So the people that don't want or don't need spirituality in the recovery, they don't think that, or they don't want it. I'm not hammering it down.
Neptune is also that global perspective, that the whole range of it. You've said poly a few times, right? That just all of it, and so that just amazes me. It's really good. Also, it's also that telepathic quality, right? Potentially, and especially because you were. So I've seen you both, and we're going to talk about your rebirth, right? But so I've seen both charts. The first you were actually born with, and then when you woke up from your coma in 2013. And both have moon conjunct Neptune, and so I think that is really something. But you were born with having it in Scorpio, so even that is also very clairvoyant, if you want to use that word.
Yeah, the term for that in Sanskrit is sanskar. Sanskars is the tendencies and you could say beliefs and likes and dislikes that we're born into from prior life experiences and so from prior life experience. And so let me sum up again. So basically, it's kind of like with the Project Addiction book. It's broken down into 4 main books. The first part is all about teaching you how addiction works, how it functions. And we're not talking about some dry narrative that's like textbook. It's something that responds to you. It's enjoyable to read. It's exciting. And then the last book of it, book 4, is the drugs. Each and every single drug, I mean, it has its own chapter. You can't treat alcoholism like you can treat heroin addiction. It's not the same thing. It's not the same animal. And that's where recovery empires fail. Because what I'm giving you is a different chapter for a different chapter that tells you what these drugs are, how they work, how they feel, and how to recover from them, which is different than everything else. So we do need a different application in all of our things, including and especially with our spiritual path, our spiritual progress.
Yeah,
it's not nothing is one size fits all.
No, and I'm I'm still reading that book. It's a long book, like you said. I have it on ebook, but I did see that there's a chapter for each. So it's really good also as something you can go back to and look it up. But about the telepathy, you, in the book that we are starting to talk about, at least in this episode, within the portal, you have a telepathic conversation with a spiritual presence while your physical body lies in a coma, and also later. But can you talk about that, where you what is it you say, where you are in both realms, in an in-between state?
Do you want me to begin with the death event itself?
Yeah, you can do that.
All right.
Sure.
Let's do it. It's pretty, now, bear with me. I will get some emotions. Understand that my emotions that you'll experience, that I'm experiencing, are not because of what I went through. It's because when I recall and remember the pain, the confusion and fear that it caused my loved ones, this wakes me up.
Yeah.
I cannot be a source of pain for others. I always want to be and try to be a full of strength and inspiration for people. And so when I remember what my family was going through, when they were realizing that I was dead and dying, I feel guilty. And so, pardon the emotions. On June 19th in 2013, I was in my office as a private practice counselor. I had 3 clients that morning text me to reschedule. That happens every once in a while, 1 or so, but 3 in a row never happened before. And suddenly I had 4 hours to kill. I didn't bring any extra work with me that day because I was backed up with clients all day as I was always. That particular morning, I rode my motorbike to work. You're in Europe, so you know what these are. I ride an MP3 500. In America, those things they're nowhere here. It really looks to me like I'm a weird freak. Of course, in Europe, they're at every intersection. You see them everywhere, right? So I'm on an MP3 500. That morning, I rode my motorbike to the office. I got on my bike, and for the first time in 7 years in that office, I turned right instead of left when I left the garage. I never would turn right. Left turn was quiet sites in the town. Right turn was intersection boulevards. To this day, I don't know why I turned right instead of left, but I did. A full-size SUV went through the light and hit me in the face, killing me instantly. This guy was going maybe 5 miles an hour. We're not talking about a big, giant, high-speed accident. And so it was fate and destiny, because it must have been the angle of the hit. Bottom line is, I was dead, okay? Now, on the corner is a tire store. In the front of that store was a pastor on the phone. Not just some guy, but a pastor who was on his cell phone because his daughter had convinced him to take her down there that day to get tires. He was real, very reluctant, and he went. He thought, oh my God. He saw the accident, and he thought, God put me here for a reason. And he ran over. He was the first man on the scene, pulling my body from underneath the car. They read my last rites. Our Father who art in heaven. They took me to ICU, and I was in a coma. My heart started, and I can tell you this, the moment of impact, my consciousness, my chitta, my mind catapulted. I was like, fuck this, don't need to be here. I don't want nothing to do with this. I didn't hover around with the out-of-body experience. I didn't do any of that. I was like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm gone. I don't need to watch any of this. So I went to the other side.
You remember this? Do you remember this?
Sorry?
Do you remember this? Like,
Yeah, yes. Well, let me finish this one part. And we're going to go into the others. That's what it's all about. And so, so we're going to go there. And so back on Earth in the hospital, I'm in a coma for 9 days. Okay. We had a pastor on one corner. We had a paramedic on the other. I got a Museum of Death t-shirt on. Okay. Turn right instead of left for the first time ever in 7 years in that office. Okay. So we had a real collection of bag of miracles happening that aren't very good for me, I think. And I'm thinking like, if God can put a paramedic on the corner, why can't he just make the truck miss me by an inch? Wouldn't that be easier? And so here we go, another one. When my family came to the hospital, they couldn't be notified because my phone and things were scattered from the accident. There's a man on the corner in front of the Jack in the Box that happened to be my son's best friend. He doesn't live anywhere near that part of town. He doesn't have any business in that part of it. That day he had an appointment at the DMV behind the Jack in the Box restaurant. So he called my son at work and said, Brandon, your dad's been in an accident. He said, how do you know it's my dad? Because his bike, no one's got a bike like that. And again, I ride an MP3 500. In Europe, you see them all the time. And here, there's nothing like it. I'm one of the only ones around. That's how my family was ordered to go to the hospital. by this best friend of my son, had happened to me on the corner that day and saw it. When they got to the hospital and I'm in a coma, they're up by two doctors and a priest. Not a good sign. And they're being told, if he ever wakes up, and they're kind of easing him into it, they're basically kind of saying like, which he won't, but if he does, even with extensive plastic surgery, he'll never be the same. And he's going to be a vegetable and not going to be able to take care of himself. This is the most severe brain trauma known to science, called a DAI, diffuse axonal injury, where the white and gray matters of your brain separate completely. It's the worst brain trauma known to science. I woke up 9 days later on my birthday. Can you get any, right?
And that astrologically, that is very interesting, right? That you wake up on your actual birthday, like this is not over.
On my birthday, of all the days. You can see in the photos that that's my son and my daughter-in-law sitting next to me in the hospital with happy birthday balloons. Okay, that's the moment I woke up from my coma. They were told, then they went and got some balloons, and they brought me a cupcake with a candle in it, which I had no idea what it was. Now, so we got a collection of miracles here. When I woke up, I did not know how to talk, did not know how to walk. And I'm not saying I had amnesia. I'm not saying I was damaged. I'm saying I did not know how. It's like my identity was deleted. The entire time I'm in a coma, I'm on the other side, in a dimension that I refer to as the portal. The Tibetan Buddhists call it the bardo. Western religion refer to it as purgatory. It's the in-between state between life and death that we all go to. And I'm completely conscious and aware the entire time. Like Ebenezer Scrooge with the Ghost of Christmas Past, where you see your life flash before your eyes in an instant kind of thing. The difference was I didn't just get a life preview. I got a multiple life preview. I was given like a cinema, like a theater, a movie of hundreds of past lives that I've had. Now, it's instant download, so it's not like it plays out that you're watching a lifetime over a long period of time. It's instant download. This was in my head, and I was able to sit there, witness them, and watch it, and feel it, and see it, and know it. And know this was my identity from lifetime after lifetime, going on this journey towards spirituality to try to become enlightened and realized so that I don't have to reincarnate anymore. I'm seeing lifetime after life over thousands of years. This was offered to me by what I refer to as Akashic agents. I'm in the Akashic space where all knowledge is stored and time is stored, and they're offering me this opportunity, this multiple past life review. And I was like, kind of like, why me? And they said, well, we can offer you this because you are very spiritually adept. You've come a long way. You spent your life studying, so these things aren't shocking to you. So you're kind of qualified, you could say. And I said, okay, but I only want to see lifetimes that pertain in regard specifically to my spiritual journey. I don't give a crap about any other kind of lifetime, just famous, rich, whatever. I don't care. Only so I can see what I did right and what I did wrong, so I can make it better. So I was granted this request. Then I had a life preview. So there was life review, which is standard, life preview. So I was also given, you could say, a prophecy of what I could expect when I return. Now, that's not a hard, linear destiny. I'm given some options. I'm given some previews to see what the different paths my life could take. The majority of people you hear on NDE podcasts and NDE topics, they have some kind of death event, and they dust themselves off in their back at work the next day, and then now they're preaching to the world about finding God, and they know everything. They're like the new Messiah. And I had to tell you, I'm a little irritated by this. These people did nothing. They were virtually agnostic or atheistic the day before, and now they feel that they're experts. I spent my life studying spirituality prior to this. I'm a certified alchemist, literally certified master alchemist from Flamel College. I'm a bhakti yogi. I'm a kundalini yogi. I've been studying and practicing these methods all my life. And I didn't get to dust off and go back to work the next day. I was in a coma for 9 days. When I woke up, didn't know who I was, didn't know who my son was, didn't know who my wife was. I knew nothing. Did not know how to talk. Had to learn like a baby. Had to learn how to walk like a baby. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I saw what I was coming back to, and I was telling these Akashic agents, can I just stay here? No, it's not your time. I said, yeah, but I've heard that people get like the choice to come back. And they're like, we just give them that illusion because it makes them commit more. If it's not your time, you're going back. That's a fact. you're mature enough to accept this. Now, when you come back to your body, like when you reincarnate, your memory of past lives and other things are virtually deleted. You have to do all work mystically and spiritually to be able to retain these things. Well, I already done that. I already had multiple past life regressions in my lifetime. Very intense. And so I knew a lot about my past lives already, and I documented many of them. And so I was able to sustain my connection, the dialogue with the Akashic agents. You could say guardian angels if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Once I woke up from my coma, and to this day, I, at will, can and do often contact with them and interact with them, and they often tell me stuff straight up. Sometimes they give me little hints of things. Hey, you might want to think about this. They give me suggestions. And other times, every once in a while, they give me direct orders. You know what? Stop doing this and do that. That's where within the portal became about.
I mean, I just want to say that this is so huge, exactly because you have lived many lives in one, and have had obviously this huge experience of, when we talk about being reborn, it's usually in a symbolic way, and maybe that is also here, but it's also in a physical way, right? Where you had to relearn a lot of things physically and mentally. So we can't take it all in this one conversation. I think we should do a part 2. So I'm just saying that for myself because I'm also hungry to hear more.
I agree. Happy to. Yeah, always interrupt me because I go on and on. So please feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Right, because it's so huge. But you've said so many interesting things already that I wanted to just get clearer about. For example, this is from a book, you call it The Countless Timeline Potentials. And I guess that is what you were shown when you say the preview of life. Then there are many doors. If you do this, then that happens. If you do that. Well, I mean, that is something I'm very interested in, the whole timeline phenomena. Can you say something more about how it works?
Sure. The way I describe it in the book where you're referring to it is there are soft destinies and hard destinies. Hard destinies are predetermined, like the death event that I had. It wouldn't matter if I stayed in bed that day, I would have been struck by lightning. That event was an event of that magnitude was going to happen that day, and I couldn't stop that. Again, as you go back through this book and you see my purchase of this bike, how I came across it, everything that this was predetermined plan for years before.
So pure fate.
Right. So that's a hard destiny. So your death, big events of your life, having children, usually something like marriage, your birth, your death, those are hard destinies. Those are fixed and they're predetermined. Okay. But how you react to them is up to you. Soft destinies are your capacity to use free will to change things. So again, death event, you can't change that. It's a hard destiny. But what you do with it is a soft destiny. Doctors are telling me and my family that I would never walk again, that I'd never function again. I proved them wrong, didn't I? Listen,
you did.
When I articulate now, I've been a public speaker for a long time. For the first 4 years after this accident, I stuttered. I struggled to even articulate any words. It was a lot of work for me. It was very depressing.
Mm-hmm.
I've come back. The chief of brain neurology, UCLA, studied me for 3 days. And I said, so what did you find out? When I was talking about a week later, and he said, you're a certifiable medical miracle. We have no idea how you're doing what you're doing. And so, indeed, what you were saying is verified. You know, it's a very profound set of circumstances.
It's very wild. And it's also so important that you share your work, because I guess that is maybe the point of it all, right? That something has to come through you and your unique experiences.
Well, I think the inference was, again, I don't like to think that I'm some type of savior or chosen person. No. I'm not Neo from the Matrix or anything like that. I'm just a man trapped in a material phenomena. But certainly there's some evidence that these Akashic agents are looking and saying, you know what? I was already somewhat of an accomplished author, experienced and skilled, and as you mentioned, like a polymath, I'm an expert in many fields. And I do think that on some level, the Akashic agents looked down and said, you know what? We can use this guy. We can exploit him. He's got a lot of skill, a lot of talent. He can reach a lot of people. And he does it in such a way that makes it accessible. He's not preaching to anybody. And so I do think that I was kind of used for that. And I'm happy to say that I have a lot of spiritual students. I'm a spiritual trainer, mentor, okay? And I work privately and I also give free workshops and classes. Anyone's free to join. And my students, they get this book. That's their study material. And it changes their lives. And I'm overwhelmingly grateful that as I wrote this book, and it was so painful to live and so painful to write and relive it, that I'm hoping, as I say in the book, there's only one thing worse than suffering for no reason. And if this book, if this story inspires anyone in one direction towards spirit even more, then it was all worth it. Then I didn't suffer for no reason.
No.
And I'm seeing it change people's lives and opening their perceptions and really changing them and grow. And I'm grateful for that.
So tell us, what is within the portal? What is it? And how does it work? And because you can access it, how does other people access it? Yeah, it's the book within the portal, but what is?
So here was the image of it. And so again, when I was reestablishing my spirit back in my body, my consciousness was returning back to my body. And again, it was a very slow trickling in process. I was totally aware of the other side the entire time. I was only 30% aware of the worldly dimension. And it was very confusing and very hard to manage between the two. When I would go to sleep at night, I was completely conscious and aware of the other side. And even when I was awake here in the world, I was very aware of and perceptive of the other side and the ethereal dimension of things. And so I didn't know what to call it. So I just began to refer to it as the portal because I didn't know what else to call it. I didn't want to use religious dogmatic terms like the bardo and like purgatory because those are theirs, and I didn't identify that. So I just began to use this term of portal because that made sense to me. And so eventually that became the name of the book.
Right. And
again, I think that's not, I mean, the word says a lot. It is a gateway. It is an entryway. The book itself is an entryway and gateway to understanding deeper and higher things. The portal itself is a dimension where you can either go to the heavenly or spiritual divine abodes, or you can come back to material phenomena. So it's a portal. It's an in-between gateway.
And what you're saying is you can actually attain it now, or attain God even, because you've had Kundalini experiences and all this practice that you've had, spiritual ability, capacity, endurance, but that became useless to you say in the book. And now you can enter it, that whole realm that you were trying to enter through spiritual practices. Now you can enter it in a different way, an easier way. Is that how it is?
Yeah, you've really done your homework. Congratulations. Thank you. That's really rare. I mean, I do a lot of interviews and very few people actually, you've actually done some of the readings. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And indeed, I'm sorry, I've lost track of your question. What was it again? Say it again. Do I have an answer for that?
You can access it easier than all the spiritual practices.
Yes. So at 25, I had a full-blown tantric Kundalini event. And I'm not saying kind of, sort of. I'm saying that it's in my first memoir, and it describes it in detail. It's on my website, the Light of my website, and it was intense. This tantric Kundalini event brought on by a tantric priestess, who was my lover at the time, caused an absolute physiological, physical, psychic, supernatural phenomena that many people would go mad from. And I was able to endure it. And I wouldn't say that was more or less than the near-death phenomenon experience. It was definitely more brief, but that was a game changer. Mm-hmm. It's not true spiritual or divine. It is just the in-between states. It's getting closer. We're getting higher in elevation, but we're not quite there yet. Then we get in the mystical. Kundalini and most of the yoga paths and meditation paths, mystical paths, like I am an alchemist and Kundalini yogi, these are the higher tiers of the material phenomena, but they're not divine. There's still a division between the divine phenomena and those.
Okay.
And so I'm not interested in anything that's going to make me reincarnate again. I'm a man trapped in a material phenomena. I don't want to be here. I want to be done. I want to like the Buddha, liberated and done with it eternally forever. I want to be put it behind me. The world is a great place to live, visit, but I don't want to live here.
Yeah,
So,
that is that desire that I really recognize in myself. And it's really a Neptunian, just to reflect it in the astrology, that is really a Neptunian desire to not want anything to do with the physical world.
that's right.
But for some
Welcome to the dark
people,
night of the soul.
sorry?
Welcome to the dark night of the soul.
Yeah, the dark night of the soul. Yeah, because for some, it certainly has for me, it has led to suicide attempts. But
Yes.
But I remember you said something about that in the book, something like you never did that path, right? But you've just been very aware that you didn't want to be here, even though
I walked away from the Kundalini event and experiences in spite of being very talented and skilled with it, because I know, like the Buddhist realized when he was doing in samadhi levels of meditation in the forest, before he went to the Bodhi tree and became enlightened permanently, he realized that no matter what I do, when I come out of meditations, I'm still part of the world. I don't want that. And so I left the yoga paths, most of them, because they were definitely high up there, but they're still part of the material phenomena. There weren't enough. I want to be a servant of the Lord, completely and entirely and totally. I want to be one. I want to have oneness with my divine parent, my divine love. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else will do.
Let's just take a moment with that.
As you mentioned, as we talk about that dark night of the soul, that you have the same perception. What I do as a spiritual trainer and teacher, look, we can laugh when you and I both have a good sense of humor, and we're both pretty light about it. But reality is, we just spoke on is very, very dark. That we realize that the material phenomenon is bullshit. Okay. And so what I do as a trainer and teacher is I'm helping people navigate to the dark night of the soul. Some people, I'm helping bring them to it so they can have that awakening. Many others are in it when they meet me, and I'm able to navigate through it safely, because I realize, yes, suicide can be a big problem there, and navigate through it and be able to see where they're going to and attain permanent eternal liberation, whatever that may be for them. And so so there's, look, the gurus, acharyas, and saints of history have given us all this knowledge. The Buddhas have given us all this knowledge. They've given us the paths. All we have to do is be able to find them, the genuine ones, and be able to sit through them and be able to use them. And so that's what I do as a trainer and teacher. I try to help people find the ones that are going to work for them and help them put it to use.
The gurus, the one who can lead the way but I guess, to me, it's the lesson here in life is really about integrating into the physical as well. So when you say you have that strong desire, I recognize it really, really deeply, but I'm also trying not to go with it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be here, embodied.
Well, it's a balancing act, isn't it, Mana? That I'm a human soul trapped in a material body and true material phenomena, and yet I am trapped here, so I better make the most of it. And so, again, I'm trying to live a sattvic life. I'm trying to live a spiritual being. I'm not a human being having a spiritual experience. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Tell her Desharan. And so I'm trying to live that and still live in the world in a responsible way and maintain my health and be good and be kind and live comfortably. And I also like to enjoy a ball game and have a beer, for God's sakes. I'm not a human being, you know?
You also say you don't want any karmic bindings, and that's in connection with forcing you back to this world, because then you'll have to incarnate again. But I'm just questioning if that is even possible, not to have any karmic bindings, is it?
No. Good. Again, excellent. Wow, you're pretty evolved. That's a pretty big question that you're linking on to. So again, what I'm sharing with you in this book is some very big concepts in very simple ways, and not simplified where I'm slipping it down. And as you pick up on right away, karma is the actual Sanskrit pronunciation, so I always use those, so pardon me. Karma is the law of cause and effect. Okay, it is the celestial power that binds us to the material phenomena. As long as you get karma diluted, then you're reincarnated. That's it. You can't change that. Yes, you create far more karma than you can possibly outlive. It takes you an instant to create them, and it takes you a while to outlive them. In the Gita, as Krishna and Arjuna are speaking about the battle that Arjuna is about to fight, and Krishna is telling him, "You dumbass, you can't kill anybody. What are you worried about? Surrender your will, your heart, and your soul, and your body to me. the supreme Lord of divine love, and I will take care of your karmas. Or yes, the only true way to get rid of it is either burn it through mentally like the Bruna, which good luck with that. It's a real bitch to do. Or surrender all to the God power and let God take care of it. God will clean it. And that's the easier path.
Yeah.
That's God's grace. So, and that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna in the Gita. Surrender your will to me, and I will take your karma.
And for example, something like addiction and other pathology, that is also karma, right?
That's your attachment. Your mind is material. Only your soul is divine and spiritual. Your mind is material. Your body is material. So your mind and your body are always going to be drawn to and attracted to the material phenomena. And the mind is pliable though. We can choose to direct it if we use the will to do so. We can direct it. We can take it away from the material phenomena and direct it towards the spiritual phenomena.
Right. At will. I also noticed that you can access this portal at will. That's that interesting interplay between will and surrendering or getting help from higher power.
It's a Zen kind of delicate practice. I mean, there are paradox that you do have free will, and yet your karmas are your destinies. And so, which is it? Is it predetermined, or do you have free will? Yeah. And only in the divine phenomena can you have these paradox where two things can exist simultaneously that are contrasts. And so, I'm just here to serve the God power. I'm just here to serve divine love.
Divine love. That's important. Divine love. That it's divine and love.
So the Western religion has like an almighty, and then there's the divine love aspect, which is much more intimate, playful, and more where God becomes your friend. God becomes your lover. God becomes very close to you. It's not formal anymore. It's not a king or lord. It's not a king or subject. It is my friend. It's my lover. It's my one and only. And I prefer to have an intimate relationship with the God power. I don't care what he does. I just love him. I can't help it.
I really appreciate talking to you, and our hour is almost up. But I'm just feeling into how wonderful it is, and I also feel like you sometimes when I say something, you pick up on it immediately. That feels really nice, because I was just pointing out that it's important with love, and then you were going through actually some of what I was just thinking, that, there are different versions of God. And
that's the intuitive link that we are sharing, because right now Grace is present in this conversation, and it's directing us. We're just the vehicles.
Really nice. Yeah. So I want to just ask, you can think about one thing, something you want to say as well, but in the end here, but just one last question is, why do we need that? Do you think it's because we are, that's that spiritual aspect of us, but it just doesn't come out in everyone, this need to merge with the spirit, if that's possible?
That's the big mysterious question, right? Is where do we get this desire from? Innately, as human beings, we all seek happiness, joy, bliss, right?
Yeah.
That's universal. When we start to delve into the divine realm and spiritual realm, then our soul says, oh my God, that's what I want. They think, and it encourages us to get more. It gives us the feeling, instead of agitation, of unhappiness, and we don't know what it is that we're unhappy about, but we know we are. It gives us a feeling of fulfillment. It gives us a feeling of, okay, you're on the right track, keep going this way. That's our intuition. And so it is a very simple answer. Many of us are born into a certain lifetime with more of this aspect, the sanskars, the tendencies, because we just recently spent lifetimes experiencing them or practicing them or pursuing them. And then we have lifetimes where we're not pursuing anything, we're just being hedonists, right? And it's not an old soul, young soul. We're all eternal souls. There's no beginning or end to the soul. We're as senior and as young as God is. But the young soul's perception is that in this lifetime, I have more memory and retention of my past lives and accumulation of spiritual work that I've done over many lifetimes in the last several hundred years. We're trying to create the sanskars, the tendencies. We're trying to invest, put deposits in your spiritual account so that your next lifetimes are there for you to withdraw from.
Makes a lot of sense. Is addiction notoriously because of an underlying need for spirit, for connection with spirit, or is it not always that?
I would say thank you. That's again a deep question and a very important one. They come down in two categories. People are just using drugs for pleasure. People are using it for something more profound. Again, I was looking for mind expansion, and then I got hooked.
But I'm just wondering if those people who want it just purely for pleasure, if that is concealed, is a concealed spiritual need.
Precisely, and that's what I'm saying is that we're all seeking pleasure, and we confuse. We think we're seeking worldly pleasure, and no matter what we do with worldly pleasure, drugs especially, it's not going to end well, which is addiction, or you're going to be disappointed. It's not enough. It's not good enough. It's too temporary. So we want to keep it going, so it can perpetuating. And again, drug addicts, I went from smoking some grass to eventually doing some IV drugs that were, you don't even have names for, okay? Something that's so exotic and so bizarre and so profound. We are seeking the ultimate absolute bliss, which is only divine. It's all it can be. So whether we know it or not consciously, we're all seeking the same thing.
It's interesting, let's call it that, to hear. I mean, it's like I have to sort it out. It's because I have a religious background, and also the churches that I've come in when I've been an adult, a young adult, I have said exactly what you're saying now, and I have to sort it out inside myself that this can be true in another context, if you know what I mean. Because I've left that church and I don't believe it anymore. It's not part of how I see the world. But it can still be true that we are souls that have this need for connection to something higher, and that we cannot be fulfilled in the material realm. It's just within a different setting. Do you know what I'm getting at? It's because this same arguments, it's like word to word what you're saying, is also being said in a church with a lot of doctrine and a lot of restrictions.
Yes, I think that as I began my spiritual journey in my youth as a child, I saw that all the hypocrisy and the evil in the world was perpetuated by religions. All the persecutions and violence, it was horrible. I'm like, all in the name of God. Listen, I'll tell you really quick. I was in London, all right? And I had a layover with about 4 hours to kill. And I'm walking around London to kill some time. I heard this music in the sky. And I followed it. I was like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And I started following it. And I led me to a mosque. It was a call for prayer, right? I'm on my way to India as a yogi. That's where I was going, my layover. I walk into this mosque, and I'm sitting there in tears at moments thinking, this is such a beautiful place. And all of us in this room have one thing in common. We all love God. You all here to just honor and appreciate God. I get a tap on my shoulder, and I look, it's the Imam. And I'm like, oh man, what did I do? Right? And he invites me to his office. He and I sat for 30 minutes and talked nonstop about loving God. An Imam Muslim and this Hindu Eastern spiritualist going to India. We had a divine, lovely conversation. We know we had in common, which was that it all comes down to just loving God and having God's grace loving you. That's all that matters. So the core of it is all the same.
It's really...
Strip away the dogmas, strip away the organizations, strip away the dogmas. At the core is the heart.
It's giving me a lot of food for thought and I guess emotions as well. And also I experienced that immediately as I left religion. I had those visions, unable to verbalize it, and I'm not sure I am now even. But having that feeling that, okay, in yoga, in whatever spiritual setting I'm talking about, there is something here that I've always believed, but then it's different because it's not that, it's this and it, yeah. So it's a bit confusing in my head, but it's really nice to hear you put it like that. And also the things you said was from the Vedas is something that I've been told in church as well, in the Pentecostal churches anyway.
And I find things to quote from all of the religious scriptures, all the ones, because the core of them is all sincere and authentic, you know, the core.
Yeah.
And listen, dogma and organization has its place. Look, they need that sort. They need that organization because the people that are just beginning, they need the rules, the dogma. They need the pressure. They need the consequence. They need to know that if they sin, they're going to go to hell. They need this because it is until you start to mature. Again, as adults, as children, we're reckless. And as adults, we realize there's consequence what we do. And so we start to live right. And so we need this kind of pressure. So the almighty power aspect of the God power telling us, thou shalt and thou shalt do this and do that. That's important because many people, they're in the beginning stage, they need that those dogmas and organizations. So that's the value.
I think what's happening as we connect is that I really remember that I mean, it's like it's still in me, that same love that I would then call for Christ or for the church. That's a little different, but for God, right? I still have that in me, and sometimes I long to be in that community to praise God in that way. But I know I have tried it after, and I know I'm not a fit for it. I haven't for many years, but shortly after, I would come back to try to see if I could be there with a different faith, and I couldn't. But there is something about it, right?
I am very content and very happy. I love Catholic cathedrals. They're ornate, they're gorgeous. Really focus on your spiritual growth. That's it. Nothing. The other things your senses can feel from the world. It's all one condensed environment, and I love that about temple and synagogue and mosque, all of them, because these are environments that are completely dedicated to one spiritual concept, and that's all. And so I love them all because again, we have one thing in common. We love God. We want God to experience God. We want to experience God's love for us. That's it.
Yeah, as long as you are free on the inside like that you can sample and it's not being forced on you. And I think that's the trauma that's blending in with it for me. But then it's just really nice hearing you speak. I'm connecting more to what was real about it inside of me. So thank you for that.
Well, and I like the ceremony. I love going to my Hindu temple and doing arti. I love going to mass at Catholic. I love it. I love ceremony. I'm a ceremony magician. I love ceremony. I'm a mystic, and so I'm an alchemist. So ceremony and physical rituals and all that are beautiful to me. I love them.
Krishnanand, do you have anything you want to end with?
I think we covered a lot, and pretty much all of it. I mean, the central message again is simply to spiritual develop. Never think that you know enough, and always be open. And again, every religion has its own version of this. And again, I'm quoting the Sanskrit Vedas one, which is, as the Lord says, take one step towards me and I'll come running 5 to you. This means that God is your servant. God's already loving you. And so when you love God, you're basically opening an avenue to be able to experience God's love for you. It's always there, but you don't experience because your mind's in the world. And so by turning our gaze to the heavens, to God, then we experience that divine light and that divine love. Pretty simple. Let me plug that if I may. Withintheportal.com. Yes. You can sign up there and you'll be invited to the weekly classes. Again, they're very fun. There's a handful of us get together. We're talking about and I pick different topics every week.
Perfect.
Reincarnation, near-death experience, we talk about all of them.
Yeah. And also I can recommend the book because the description of your NDE is even more detailed than we got to here. And it's so miraculous. And
the book
interesting.
The book literally teaches you in a narrative, creative way that how this works. It teaches you how religion works, how it teaches you how spirituality works, it teaches you how the near-death phenomena works. It teaches you how it works. And again, in a fun, creative narrative. And I don't mean fun as it, you've seen some of the book. My story is dark and it's heavy.
Like I've read the book cover to cover.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know. It is heavy and tragic, and yet it is also inspiring and beautiful.
Yeah.
So you got to again. It's not something it's something you experience.
It is. It's personal, and it's all of these big themes as well.
Thank you so much for reading. I'm sorry. I didn't. It's a huge book. And yet I think it's an easy read because again, it's a creative narrative, so it flows. It does. And each chapter is short enough where you can do it in one session, right?
Thank you so much, Krishnanand. I think we have to meet again at some point. And
I appreciate the invitation. You let me know. I'll be happy to come back and talk to you.
We could talk into a more specific topic maybe, and maybe all around again. But this is really good, really inspiring. And just thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and bless everybody for listening to this.